Hi students, I hope all of you are keeping fine. Do you remember the things that we've studied last year? The concepts about economics, so many definitions, etc. That all those definitions will be used again in the second year, and I hope you are in touch with all of that. And if not, please kindly go through the +1 textbook, first few chapters, so that it will be easy for you to understand the things that we are going to study this year. Alright, today let us talk about the first chapter of the second year textbook, that is Microeconomics and Macroeconomics, an introduction. It is just an introduction. In the first 6 chapters, we will be talking about many of the microeconomic theories. And after that, we will go to macroeconomics. So the first chapter is just an introduction about what is microeconomics and macroeconomics and its relationship, the scope of the study, interdependence, the differences, etc. Alright. So, do you remember what is economics? Please revise those definitions of Alfred Marshall, Adam Smith, etc. that we have studied in the first chapter. Now, what is microeconomics and macroeconomics? The subject economics can be broadly divided into 2 branches. They are microeconomics and macroeconomics. And actually, this microeconomics and macroeconomics, they are not 2 independent disciplines, but both are 2 branches of the so-called economics. And it doesn't mean that branches are independent, but both of them are depending on each other for all type of clarifications. And in short, we can say that micro and macro are 2 different approaches to economics. That is 2 different ways to study economics. They are not exactly 2 branches, but they are in both micro and macro. We will be studying most of the same things that is about our economic system. Our economic system means not only about our Indian economic system, but the economic system. So in micro, we will study in a particular viewpoint, from a particular viewpoint, and in macroeconomics, we will study the same thing from a different perspective. Alright. Now, let us talk about microeconomics. See, the word microeconomics, there is a prefix. The prefix is micro. That micro is coming from a Greek word that is micros. The meaning of that particular Greek word is small. So the word microeconomics gives us the idea that we are dealing with the small individual items of the economic system. So the definition for microeconomics is like this. Microeconomics is the study of the economic behavior of individual economic units and individual economic variables. So see, it is the study of individual economic units and individual economic variables. Why do we say separately that individual economic units and individual economic variables? Or what is individual economic units and what is individual economic variables? Individual economic units means, see, suppose there is a big forest, and if we take a single tree from the forest, that is an individual tree, right? And so many trees altogether make the forest. So exactly in the same way, in the economic system, there are so many individual units. Which of them altogether creates our economic system? For example, an individual consumer. See, any one of you can be an individual consumer, or all of us are individual consumers. Or it can be a producer. The one who is producing sugar cane is an individual producer. Or the one who is cultivating paddy in the field nearby our school is an individual producer. Or the one who is purchasing 1 kilogram of wheat or 1 kilogram of rice from a shop is an individual consumer. So like that, there are so many individual units. Or suppose we talk about price of a commodity, that is an individual unit. So like that, in microeconomics, we are talking about the individual units and individual economic variables. There are so many economic variables, and we will talk deeply about all these units and variables in the following chapters. Okay. Now, let us see what is the unit of study of microeconomics. See, microeconomics study about households, firms, industries, etc. Who is an household? An individual consumer can be a household. Or firm. Firm means an individual producing unit. That can be a firm. Or an industry. What is an industry? Industry is a group of firms. That means industry is a unit which produce a particular commodity. The group of firms who produce a particular commodity can be called as industry. So all of these are individual units. So again, the same things come as the subject matter of microeconomics. That is the study of the economic behavior of the households, firms, and industries. That is the subject matter of microeconomics. How an individual household behave in a particular situation, or how a firm behave in different situations, or how an industry, that means the entire firm, behave in a particular situation. That is the subject matter, or that is what we study in microeconomics. All right. Let us see one more definition on microeconomics. It's given by Professor Balding. According to him, microeconomics is the study of a particular firm, particular household, individual price, wage, income, industry, and particular commodity. So it's clear. The same as we have discussed in the previous definition. Microeconomics is the study of a particular firm. Particular means an individual firm, or a particular household, an individual. It doesn't mean that we will be studying only about a single or a particular household or a firm. It is not like that. When we talk about economic units in microeconomics, we will not take the entire units, but we will be talking about individual units. For example, see, in our school, there are so many classes, there are so many divisions, and so many students are studying here. So as a whole, when somebody asks about the academic performance of our school, we don't speak about a particular student, but we speak about the entire school. And when we are coming to the classes, or when we talk about the academic performance of a particular class or a particular division, there we speak about a single student or a number of students, some individual students. Do you follow me? Which means, as a school, we speak about in common, but when we speak about the classes, there we focus on individual students. Just like that, in microeconomics, we focus on individual units like a household, price, then wage of a household or wage of a person, income of an individual, then about an industry which produce, for example, the bathing soap, or a particular commodity, for example, toothpaste. That is what we study in microeconomics. In economics, all the theories are based on some assumptions. And in microeconomics also, the branch called microeconomics also is based on a particular assumption. That is full employment in the economy as a whole. That is the assumption of microeconomics. Okay, full employment in the economy as a whole. What do you mean by full employment? We will talk about what is full employment, what is unemployment, what is voluntary unemployment, etc. Okay, so microeconomics is also known as price theory. Why? Because price occupies a central place in microeconomics. The price of a commodity, then again the wages of individual employees. There also comes price. So price is the central place in microeconomics. So microeconomics is also known as price theory. What is the scope of microeconomics? We have already talked about the scope of microeconomics. But once again, In microeconomics, we study the behavior of various individual economic units such as individual households, firms and industries and individual variables. That is the scope of microeconomics. Now let us see what is the subject matter of microeconomics. In microeconomics, we study about the theory of demand, the theory of production, the theory of cost, theory of product pricing, theory of distribution, welfare economics. So all these theories will be studied in detail. So we will talk about all these theories in the forthcoming chapters. Here in this diagram, we can see that microeconomic theory microeconomic theory can be divided into three categories. They are product market and product pricing, then factor market and factor pricing, then welfare economics. So under microeconomic theory, the product market and product pricing, that can be subdivided into four. They are theory of demand, theory of production, theory of cost and theory of product pricing. Again, under microeconomic theory, factor market and factor pricing can be subdivided into four. They are determination of wages, determination of interest, determination of rent and determination of profit. Again, there is one more branch under microeconomic theory, that is welfare economics. So there we study about the economical activity of a particular economic system and the welfare of the people. There we will talk about the environmental problems, etc. So we will talk about welfare economics in detail in a different chapter. Now let us talk about what is macroeconomics. So far we were talking about microeconomics, and I hope you got some idea about microeconomics. Doesn't matter if it is not clear, we will talk about definitely about all these things in detail in the following chapters. Now let us see what is macroeconomics. Just as in microeconomics, in macroeconomics also the prefix macro, that is taken from a Greek word that is macros, and the meaning of that is large. So which means macroeconomics, we will be talking about some large things, that is the entire economic system. So what is macroeconomics? Macroeconomics is the study of the economy as a whole. Macroeconomics is the study of the economy as a whole, or it deals with the functioning of the entire economic system. There we will not be talking about a particular individual unit, or that is a household, an industry or a firm. So it is not like that, but we will be dealing with the functioning of the entire economy. There is national income, there is unemployment, there is employment, there is full employment, etc. So the units of study of macroeconomics is the entire economy rather than part of the economic system. So we will not be talking about a particular part, but we will be talking about the entire economic system. So macroeconomics deals with the problems faced by the entire economy, all the problems faced by the entire economy. And the subject matter of macroeconomics is national income, employment, aggregate consumption, that means total consumption, then aggregate saving or total saving, aggregate investment or total investment, then general price level and economic growth. So national income is a broad concept. That is not an individual concept. So national income is the group of so many, or it is the sum total of so many other things. Then employment. There are so many other things which determine the employment or the total employment. Then aggregate consumption, that is the consumption of the entire economy. Then savings of the entire economic system. Then the investment taking place in the economic system. It is not an investment by a particular individual, but it is the investment in the whole economic system. Then general price level, that is the price of all the commodities in the economic system. Then economic growth. Economic growth also is a broad concept. All right, let us see one more definition on macroeconomics. According to Professor Balding, macroeconomics deals not with individual quantities such as the price of a commodity. income of a person, but with aggregates of these quantities. That is the total of all these quantities, not with individual incomes, but with the national income, not with the individual prices, but with the price level of the entire economic system, not with the individual output, but with the national output. Once again, macroeconomics deals with not with individual quantities, but with aggregates of all these quantities, not with individual incomes, but with the national income, not with individual prices, but with the price level of the entire economic system, not with the individual output, but with the national output. All right, let us see the assumption of macroeconomics, just as we have seen in microeconomics, the assumption of macroeconomics. See, just as price occupies a central place in microeconomics, similarly, income occupies the central place in the study of macroeconomics. So, what is the central place of macroeconomics? That is income. And income, output, and employment, they are assumed to move in the same direction. That is the assumption of macroeconomics. Income, output, and employment. Three of them are assumed to move in the same direction. An increase in any one of these will bring simultaneous increase in the other. For example, when national output increases, income and employment of resources also increase. So it is called as income theory or employment theory also. So macroeconomics is also called as income theory or employment theory. And again, it is also called as monetary theory. Why? Because money takes an important place in the macroeconomic theories. That is why macroeconomic theory is also called as monetary theory. Now the subject matter of macroeconomics. The subject matter of macroeconomics is theory of output and employment, theory of general price level, theory of national income, theory of economic growth, theory of international trade, and theory of money. So in macroeconomics we study about theory of output and employment. That is a broad concept. Then theory of general price level of the entire economic system. Theory of national income, the income of the entire economic system. Theory of economic growth, the growth of the whole economy. Theory of international trade, the trade with foreign countries. Then theory of money, all the monetary theories. So all these are the subject matter of macroeconomics. So far we studied about what is microeconomics, then its Greek origin, then what is macroeconomics, the scope of both micro and macroeconomics, the unit of study of both micro and macroeconomics, then the subject matter of both micro and macroeconomics, then some of the definitions. Now let us see the main difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. When we talk about the difference between micro and macroeconomics, we can see there are some differences, just like the unit of study, then the focus of study, then difference in the basic parameter of subject matter, then different perspectives of both micro and macro, then the methods of study that both these branches use, then nature of assumptions, how the assumptions are formulated, then what is the nature of assumption, etc. Both micro and macroeconomics differ with each other in terms of unit of study. Microeconomics studies the economic behavior of individual economic units. It is concerned with how the individual units make decisions and what affects these decisions. The main individual economic units are households, firms, and industries, or individual markets. Now, in macroeconomics is concerned with the behavior of the economy as a whole. Now, when we speak about focus of study, microeconomics differs from macroeconomics in terms of the nature of economic problems studied. Microeconomics deals with the determination of prices and quantities in individual markets. It is concerned with allocation of resources among individuals, firms, and industries. Then macroeconomics, on the other hand, deals with broad economic aggregates like national income, total employment, aggregate consumption, aggregate saving, investment, etc. When we speak about the parameter of subject matter, the price is the basic parameter of the subject matter of microeconomics, and income is the basic parameter of macroeconomics. So all the decisions in microeconomics is taken based on price, the price of a commodity, and all the decisions in macroeconomics is taken on the basis of income of the nation, etc. Again, when we speak about different perspectives in microeconomics, it is the bottom up view. Microeconomics is the bottom up view. Bottom up view means from the single unit to the entire unit, from bottom to top. That is the perspective of microeconomics. And on the other hand, macroeconomics is top down view. Top down view means from the whole to the individual. So we deduct from the whole to the individual unit. In microeconomics, we start from individual units, then we apply the same theory, or what we have studied about the individual units, all those facts are applied to the entire economic units. That is what we have in microeconomics. But in macroeconomics, first we talk about the entire economic system. Then from there, we deduce to the single economic units. Then when we speak about the methods of study, that's very important. The method of study of microeconomics is, it is partial equilibrium analysis. That is partial equilibrium analysis. So the method of study of microeconomics is partial equilibrium analysis, or the assumption of ceteris paribus. Assumption of ceteris paribus, which means other things being equal. Ceteris paribus means other things being equal. So the meaning of that is, in microeconomics, when we speak about any economic units, there we discuss about that particular economic unit by taking the assumption that all other things are remaining unchanged. Did you understand? When we speak about microeconomics or a microeconomic unit, or when we study about a particular microeconomic unit, there we take an assumption that all other things are remaining equal. For example, when we speak about the economic behavior of an individual household, there we should have an atmosphere or a situation where the price should be unchanged. The taste and preferences of the consumer should be unchanged. Then the technology should not be changed. Then the price of the commodity, I already said, the price of the commodity should not be changed. Then the situation remaining in the market should not be changed. So there are so many things that affect the consumption of a particular individual consumer. So when all these things are remaining unchanged, that is the price of the commodity, the price of some other commodities, the income of the consumer, or then the supply of that particular commodity, then the demand of that particular commodity, the economic situation in that particular country, then the taste and preferences of that particular consumer, if all these things are remaining unchanged, then what is the consumption behavior of that particular individual household? That is what we study in partial equilibrium analysis, or ceteris paribus. And the method of study of macroeconomics is quasi-general equilibrium analysis. The method of study of macroeconomics is quasi-general equilibrium analysis. That is the mutual dependence of macroeconomic variables is very essential in macroeconomics, and under quasi-general equilibrium analysis we speak that all the variables should be changing but in the same direction. That means everything should be changing. When we speak about the national income, then there should be a change in the national employment level, there should be a change in the resource allocation, there should be a change in the production, but all the changes should be in the same direction. That is, let me make it little more clear. Suppose there is a 10% increase in the national income. So in order to make it clear, or in order to make it perfect, there should be a 10% increase in the employment level, or there should be a 10% increase in the resource allocation, or there should be a 10% increase in the production, etc. So that is what we study in quasi-general equilibrium analysis. Now let's talk about the nature of assumption. Both micro and macroeconomics differ from each other on the basis of nature of assumption. In microeconomics, it is assumed that total output, total income, unemployment, general price level, etc. That is, all the economic variables of macroeconomics are assumed there in microeconomics. And on the basis of these assumptions, macroeconomics explain how allocation of resources takes place and how prices of different commodities are determined, etc. On the other hand, macroeconomics assumes allocation of resources, distribution of output, spending, and various goods and services, relative prices, etc. And all these are economic variables of microeconomics. Alright, so on the basis of these assumptions, macroeconomics explain how aggregate output, income, employment, and price level, etc. are determined in the economic system. So far we were discussing about the differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now let us see the interdependence between microeconomics and macroeconomics. So when we talk about the interdependence between micro and macro, there are three categories we can talk about. They are, first one, influence of consumption behavior of individuals on aggregate demand. See, what is that? The influence of consumption behavior of individuals. So that is a microeconomic unit. Consumption behavior of individuals. Individual is a microeconomic unit. So the consumption behavior of an individual that will or that can influence the aggregate demand. Aggregate demand means the total demand of the entire economic system. So the consumption behavior of an individual consumer, which is a microeconomic unit, can influence or affect the aggregate demand, which is a macroeconomic unit. And the second one, individual consumption behavior influences aggregate saving and economic growth. So definitely in the following chapters we will talk about what's the difference or what is the relation between consumption, saving, etc. So anyway, here the consumption behavior of an individual consumer that can influence, or there is an influence of individual consumption behavior of a consumer on the aggregate saving. Aggregate saving means total saving and economic growth. So when there is an increase in the saving rate, there will be economic growth, because savings will be diverted into so many different ways, which will result in the growth of the economic system. So the behavior of a microeconomic unit can influence the aggregate saving and economic growth. Again, individual consumption behavior can influence the national income and its fluctuations. So the behavior of an individual unit, that is a household, can influence the national income. National income is a macroeconomic unit. See here, individual consumption behavior of a household, that is a microeconomics unit, and that can influence the national income and its fluctuations. So national income and its fluctuations both are related to macroeconomics. So here micro is depending on microeconomics. In the same way how macroeconomics depends on microeconomics, let us discuss how microeconomics depends on macroeconomics. First one is influence of inflation or deflation on production decisions at the micro level. So inflation and deflation both are related to macroeconomics. It is related to national income, etc. So how those macroeconomics variables can influence the microeconomic variable, the production decision at the micro level. That is how a single economic producer or a firm decide what to produce, how to produce, etc. based on the inflation or deflation prevailing in the economic system. Again, influence of market rates of interest on individual savings and investment behaviors. See, what is market rate? It can be explained in different way. The market rate of commodities. Rate of commodities means, suppose the price of commodities are so high, then most of the income of the consumer will be spent on consumption, so that the saving may come or the saving may decrease. And if the market rate or the price of the commodities are very low, then definitely the most part of the income of the consumer will be saved and the saving will increase. Again, the rate of interest of saving in the banking sector also can influence the saving investment behavior of the consumer, that is microeconomic units. Again, the next one is influence of government tax or subsidy on individual consumption and production. What is the influence of tax and subsidy, or what is subsidy? Do you know what is subsidy? Subsidy is the money given from the government to save either individual units or some group of units from some economic burden. Okay, there are so many things related to subsidy. We will talk about subsidy later. Anyway, influence of government tax or subsidy. What is government tax? That is the income of government. So government has power either to increase or decrease tax. If the tax is very high, that means the commodity tax is very high, definitely the price of the commodities also will increase. That may decrease the consumption of the individual consumers. If the consumption is very low, definitely the producers will try to decrease the production because they will not be ready to suffer a loss. And suppose government is providing subsidy. If government is providing subsidy, the producer will be able to save his loss which is happening because of the increased government tax. So if subsidy is there, definitely the price of the commodity may come down. That can increase the consumption rate. Then if the consumption rate is increasing, the producer may increase the production. So this is how microeconomics is depending on macroeconomics.